Booktube, Science Fiction Reads here with another edition of recent reads and some new books. So I think last time I left off reading Aeon by Greg Bear, which was my third Greg Bear in a row, and I kind of got burnt out. I had planned on continuing with Eternity and maybe even the prequel Legacy, but Aeon, despite being really good, hard SF, like I enjoyed it. Again though, it was like practically a 5-star read that I just couldn't give 5 stars. I had to give 4 because of the difficulty with his description of the landscape and some of the objects in this really futuristic setting was really hard to understand. And I was glad to see on Goodreads and other places online that other people were complaining about just the lack of description or the confusing description. It was really good. I enjoyed it. But I also felt it served as a good standalone, not counting the prequel. The prequel probably is fine, but I didn't actually have much desire to go on to Eternity, even though it's an interesting developments at the end of Aeon. It felt like a natural conclusion, and combined with my frustration with his description and reading 3 of his books in a row, I had to call it quits, at least for now. Which sucks, because with my poor memory, by the time I want to read Eternity, I'll have to read Aeon again. It was good, I got a little burnt out on Greg Bear. Then I just randomly grabbed off the shelf Poul Anderson's Traitor to the Stars, which is part of his huge future history, which involves a couple different series. I've been interested in his future history, the Pulsal Technic League, or whatever it's called. And this is a collection of 3 short stories with one of his recurring characters in that series, Nicholas Van Ryn. And it was terrible. The character, he's almost like, it's almost like his first language, well, that would make sense. His first language is French, but he speaks English, and he just, the choice that Anderson made for this character's like broken English and just terrible puns and the words he chooses was really, really cringy. So it was 3 stories. He's like this overweight, alcoholic, womanizing, just not a very great character, but somehow he's also able to save the day. Not just puzzling together, you know, whatever the central mystery is and solving problems, but at one point actually like winning a duel with a warrior, which I thought was ridiculous. Did not care for the character. I'm really having no luck with Anderson. I know I've said this before, and some of you have suggested, you know, other places to start with Poul Anderson, but you know, it's future histories attract and appeal to me, and I want to like Anderson. I think I'm just gonna have to take people's advice and read, you know, the major stuff, none of which I can remember at the moment. I know it's his fantasy he's more regarded for, but once again, not a great experience with Poul Anderson. And I've read very little since my last video. I have not been sleeping well, and so I'm just not in the mood to read. But I did randomly pick up A Princess of Mars. I'm barely in it. But I started this like 3 days ago. I'm just not in much of a reading mood. Intriguing so far, but I can tell I'm not going to like Burroughs as much as I like Brackett. But that makes sense. Brackett came, you know, like she was writing 20, 30 years later. So more developed style and whatnot. But I love the cover art for these. I've got all of them. Although I took them off the shelf a few days ago and realized 3 of them are completely separated from the binding and falling apart. So I might have to try and replace those. All right, on to new books. I should have separated these ahead of time. Hold on. All right, I've got 4 Jack Chalker books, all from his Well of Souls series. The only Jack Chalker I've read is short stories. And I have, God, you know, 15 to 20 of Jack Chalker's books at this point. He's another one I've been looking at recently online. I want to read I want to pick one of his series and try to get into it. So I also have Exile, Well of Souls. Again, these are some crazy vintage cover art. I think this is, I mean, it's advertised as science fiction, but the cover art kind of gives you science fantasy vibes. These almost look like Pierce Anthony covers. If anybody's read Jack Shocker, specifically the Well of Souls series, I know there's 2 series combined in the Well of Souls world, but let me know if they're any good or where to start with Jack Shocker. And then Twilight of the Well of Souls. This one's bagged, I guess, because it's in really excellent shape. I just bought a pack of 100 paperback bags, but I'm reluctant to use them because I fear that, I don't know, you read that moisture can get in there and damage them over time, but I mean, so many people bag their books, I'm sure there's not much to fear, and it looks great. And then I found, just at a thrift store, a nice copy of The Voices of Heaven by Frederick Pohl, which is a standalone. Another major SF author from that time period that I haven't read any novels by. And this is a standalone, so I thought that might be a good place to start. I bought it because it's a standalone and in really nice shape. I also found The Gripping Hand, which is the sequel to The Mote in God's Eye, which is one of the first science fiction books I ever started reading, but I DNF'd it. But that was literally 3 or 4 years before I even really got into science fiction. And I found a Charles Sheffield, The Mindpool. That's one I don't have. I'm always saying I love Charles Sheffield, but it's been a few years since I read anything by him. I think this is also a standalone of some sort. Earlier in the month, I was showing off those, the annual World's Best Science Fiction by Donald Wollheim, the nice hardcovers that they released for, I think, like 15 years or something, and I was only missing one. I ordered that from, I think, Thrift Books or something, and of course, it showed up with no dust jacket. So the collection remains incomplete as far as I'm concerned. I only bought this because it was like $9, which was the cheapest by far I could find it online. I will buy it again someday. I'll keep this in case the actual physical book is in better condition than the next one that arrives, but that was pretty annoying. But that's the risky run buying from them. And then this was a neat find. I found a copy of A Canticle for Leibowitz by Greg Press. This was at a thrift store. It was in the nonfiction section. So I just saw the spine and I was like, that looks like Greg Press, but I've never actually seen one not online. And then it was A Canticle for Leibowitz, so that's neat. A book I haven't read, but I already own a paperback copy. So that's neat. And just a few more. These all came from Norm at the Bookstore on Pluto, a website, a seller local to me. I've mentioned him before, and I'll probably post up a link to his site or whatnot. So a book I've already read and own, Larry Niven's Protector. It's pretty damn close to the edition I have, but I'm collecting all of the ones from this series. I've got a bunch of them here. Spine-wise, they basically look good, but didn't have that front cover. And ironically, the one I'll be getting rid of has like the better representation of the cover art. I might just keep it for that. But this is the one that'll be on the shelf. Also from him, I got a copy of The Whit Lane by Werner Vinge because I thought it might be in better condition than the copy I have. It's about the same, so I'll have to look at them closely and pick which to keep. I started a DNF to this like 6 months ago, not because it wasn't any good, but I just wasn't in the mood to read at the time, and a week later I think I just started something else. Edmund Cooper, Seahorse in the Sky. I've got a couple books by him, but I think that, well, there was one like the 8th or the 10th planet I read that was no good, and A Far Sunset, which was decent. I can't remember what this one's about. Characters waking up in a strange environment. I think it's just one single street, maybe with like invisible barriers at each end. There's nowhere else to go or something. I just read the synopsis quickly and it sounded appealing. And the bookstore in Pluto has like a $1 or $2 bin for books that are not in great shape, and that's where this was, so I thought I'd add that to my order. Also from that section of his website, I got The Best of James Blish. I guess collecting these. I haven't read much James Blish, but love that cover art. This would probably be a good place to start with him, short story wise. And I've got several of these now. And I think that's it. Just one more to go. I got Neville Shaw's On the Beach, which sounds like interesting, I think post-apocalypse. Yeah, after a nuclear war type thing. Kind of sounded like maybe I could catch the feelings I had when I read Earth Abides by George R. Stewart, which I think that was published in 59 or something. This was published in 57. This copy's from 63. But sounded interesting. I've heard about it before, but don't really know much about it. I think that's it. Yeah, just trying to get back in the mood to read. It'd be nice if I could rip through this and maybe read the next couple. Otherwise, don't really know what I'm going to read next. But as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.